Hello, everyone. I am your friend William, and I welcome you to the FriendTone podcast. Do you know that this podcast is different? Let me tell you how. Today's episode is special because we have an amazing mix of guests, a Pakistani guest, an Indian guest, and a native English speaker. This means you'll hear different accents, different styles of speaking, and real-life English learning in action.
No doubt, this program is really going to be different today.
Absolutely, Ayan. Our goal is to help you improve your English naturally. And trust me, this podcast is not like the others. No scripted robotic conversations here. Just real discussions that make learning fun and effective.
Yes, and I'm really happy to be on this platform. I've seen how much this podcast has helped people understand English better.
That's right, Charlotte. Now, let's introduce our guests properly. Ayan Malik from India, a non-native English speaker improving his fluency. Charlotte Amelia from the USA, a native speaker with expert-level insights. Sami Khan from Pakistan. Sami Khan is not with us in the studio today. He had commented on our last video and asked, "What should I do to get a chance to join your program?" So he sent us his voice samples, and they were impressive. Because of this, we have started a new segment. If you think you have a good microphone and your English is at an intermediate level, we will give you the script for the next podcast. You will receive your dialogues, practice them, and send us your voice samples. If your samples are good, we will include you in the next podcast with your name.
That's great. I'm excited to hear his thoughts.
Exactly. And for those of you listening, if you also want to be part of this program, just follow the same steps. Now, let's begin. Sami, welcome to FriendTone Podcast.
Thank you so much, William. I STEM really excited to be here. It STEM's a great opportunity for me to share my thoughts and improve my English at the same time.
Sami has an intermediate level of English, and his journey is relatable to many learners looking to improve their proficiency. Next, we have Ayan Malik from India. Ayan, welcome.
Happy to be here.
Ayan's English is good, but he still seeks improvement, just like many of our listeners. And finally, we have Charlotte Amelia from the USA, a native English speaker and a well-known psychologist and motivational speaker. Charlotte, welcome.
Thank you, William. It's a pleasure to be here and discuss ways to help others improve their English. William, you've introduced everyone, but why don't you tell our listeners a little about yourself?
Of course. I'm William Oliver, a Canadian analyst focused on human rights, social welfare, and global development. I have a PhD in social sciences and work closely with international organizations, analyzing social, economic, and political trends. My role here is to facilitate insightful discussions, helping our listeners understand the best ways to improve their English. Let's start with a basic yet crucial question. Why is learning English important, and what are the best ways to improve it? Charlotte, since you are a native speaker and a psychologist, why don't you share some insights?
Absolutely. Learning English or any language is not just about memorizing words. It's about consistent practice, exposure, and understanding. One of the best ways to improve is by surrounding yourself with the language as much as possible. This can be through reading books, watching movies, and engaging in conversations with native speakers. But I'd also add that it's important to enjoy the process. If you're not having fun, it's harder to stay motivated. For example, if you love cooking, try following English recipes or watching cooking shows in English. It's about integrating the language into things you already enjoy.
That's such a great point, Charlotte. It's not just about textbooks and grammar drills. It's about making English a part of your life. Ayan, what's your take on this? How have you made English a part of your daily routine?
For me, it's been a mix of things. Like Charlotte said, reading books has been huge. I started with simpler books and gradually moved to more complex ones. But I also try to think in English sometimes. If I'm planning my day or making a to-do list, I'll do it in English. It's a small thing, but it helps me practice without even realizing it.
That's such a clever technique. Thinking in English is a great way to internalize the language. Sami, what about you? How do you incorporate English into your daily life?
I'm a big fan of movies and TV shows, so I try to watch at least one episode or a short clip in English every day. At first, I relied heavily on subtitles, but now I try to watch without them to challenge myself. And honestly, it's amazing how much you pick up just by listening common words, phrases, and how people talk.
That's such a good point, Sami. Listening is such an underrated skill in language learning. And it's not just about understanding the words, it's about picking on tone, emotion, and context. For example, when someone says, "I'm fine," the way they say it can mean completely different things depending on their tone. That's something you can only learn by listening.
Absolutely. And speaking of listening, let's talk about accents. English is such a diverse language with so many accents and dialects. Charlotte, as a native speaker, do you think learners should focus on one specific accent, or should they expose themselves to a variety?
I think exposure to different accents is crucial. It helps you become a more adaptable listener. For example, if you only ever listen to American English, you might struggle to understand someone with a British or Australian accent. But if you expose yourself to a range of accents, you'll find it easier to communicate with people from different parts of the world. Plus, it's fascinating to hear how the same language can sound so different.
That's so true. I remember the first time I heard someone with a Scottish accent, I was completely lost. But over time, I've gotten better at understanding different accents. It's all about exposure and practice.
Exactly. And speaking of practice, let's talk about speaking. Many learners struggle with confidence when it comes to speaking English. Sami, how do you overcome that fear?
It's definitely a challenge. I used to be so nervous about making mistakes that I wouldn't speak at all, but then I realized that everyone makes mistakes, even native speakers. The key is to just start speaking, even if it's not perfect. I also found it helpful to practice with friends who are also learning English. It takes the pressure off because we're all in the same boat.
That's such a great approach, Sami. Practicing with peers can be so empowering. And remember, making mistakes is part of the learning process. Every mistake is an opportunity to improve. I always tell my clients, don't aim for perfection, aim for progress.
That's such a powerful mindset. Progress over perfection. Let's take a short break, and when we come back, we'll dive into specific recommendations for books, movies, and tools that can help our listeners improve their English. Welcome back, everyone. Before the break, we had an insightful discussion on how to improve English through daily habits, exposure, and technology. Now let's dive deeper and talk about specific recommendations, books, movies, tools, and exercises that can help our listeners improve their English. Let's start with books. Charlotte, as a native speaker and a psychologist, do you have any book recommendations that can help learners?
Absolutely. For beginners, I always recommend books with simple, clear language. Charlotte's Web by E.B. White is a great start. It's engaging and easy to follow. For those at an intermediate level, The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho is an excellent choice because the language is simple, but the story is meaningful. For advanced learners, I'd suggest To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, which introduces rich vocabulary and deep themes. Reading fiction is a great way to pick up new words naturally.
That's a fantastic list. Ayan, what about you? Any books that helped you improve your English?
Yes, I started with The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. The sentences are short and it's a beautiful story. Then I moved on to self-help books like Atomic Habits by James Clear. The language is simple and you learn useful life lessons at the same time.
Great choices. Sami, what about movies or TV shows? What do you think are the best ones to learn English from?
For beginners, animated movies like Finding Nemo or Toy Story are great because they have clear pronunciation and simple dialogues. For intermediate learners, funny TV shows like Friends or How I Met Your Mother are helpful because they use everyday conversations. Advanced learners can watch movies like The King's Speech or The Pursuit of Happiness to hear more complex sentence structures and vocabulary.
That's a great list, Sami. Another tip I'd add is to use subtitles when watching movies. Start with subtitles in your own language, then switch to English subtitles, and finally, try watching without them. This helps improve listening skills gradually.
That's a great strategy, Charlotte. Now let's talk about speaking practice. Many learners struggle with confidence when speaking English. Ayan, what are some exercises that helped you?
One thing that really helped me was shadowing. I would listen to a short sentence from a TV show or podcast and immediately repeat it, mimicking the pronunciation and rhythm. It helped me sound more natural. I also practiced speaking in front of a mirror to improve my confidence.
That's such a great idea. I also practice by recording my voice and then listening to it. It helps me identify pronunciation mistakes and work on them. Plus, it sets a great way to track progress over time.
Those are excellent techniques. Another fun way to practice is storytelling. Take a simple event from your day and try to explain it in English. It forces you to think in English and build sentences naturally.
Great advice. Let's move on to another important topic, writing. Many learners struggle with writing in English, especially when it comes to structuring sentences and using the right grammar. Charlotte, do you have any practical tips for improving writing skills?
Yes! One of the best ways to improve writing is to keep a daily journal. Write about anything, your day, your thoughts, or even short stories. The key is consistency. Also, using apps like Grammarly can help correct mistakes in real time and explain why something is incorrect.
I also find writing summaries of books or movies helpful. It forces me to think critically and use new vocabulary in context.
I practice writing by chatting with friends in English on social media. It's a casual way to improve without feeling pressure.
Great suggestions. Now let's discuss an important aspect of learning, motivation. Many learners start enthusiastically but lose motivation over time. How can they stay motivated?
The key to motivation is setting small, achievable goals. Instead of saying, I want to be fluent in English, set a goal like, I will learn 5 new words every day. Celebrate small wins to stay encouraged.
I also recommend finding a study buddy. Learning with a friend makes it fun and keeps you accountable.
For me, tracking progress helps. I write down new words and expressions I learn each week, and when I look back, I see how much I see improved. It keeps me motivated.
These are fantastic strategies. Now, before we wrap up, let's give our listeners some final words of encouragement. Charlotte, any last advice?
Remember, learning English is a journey, not a destination. Don't be afraid of making mistakes. Every mistake is a step toward improvement.
And practice a little every day. Even 10 minutes can make a big difference over time.
Have fun with it. Watch movies, read books, talk to friends, make English a part of your life.
As we wrap up today's podcast, I want to share something important with you. Unlike many AI-generated podcasts, every line here has been carefully crafted by me with real effort and dedication. My goal isn't just to rank videos, but to ensure that every listener walks away having learned something valuable. I didn't start this podcast by asking you to subscribe. I'm saying it now at the end, because if you found value in our discussion, if you believe in my approach, and if you want to continue learning with us, then I invite you to subscribe and share this channel. Your support helps us grow and bring even more valuable content. We're constantly evolving. Just like today, when we welcomed Sami Khan, we'll continue adding new voices and perspectives. Soon, we'll also launch a Facebook page where I'll personally engage with your comments because your feedback truly matters. And with that, I'll leave you with my final words. Goodbye for now, not forever. Inspired by my friend saying, last but not least, this is just the beginning of our journey together. Thank you, Charlotte, Ayan, and Sami, for your insights. And to our listeners, keep practicing, stay motivated, and remember, progress over perfection. See you next time.